That's what those disciples were seeing that day. They were seeing that those who were considered on the outside of society, the outsiders, were suddenly receiving the gift of Jesus. And that gift of Jesus was being transforming power that changed their lives. What a wonderful story. What a wonderful gift for us in metropolitan community churches, that we don't get to have to say who's on the inside or who's on the outside, but rather we get to be in community with one another, just accepting that the presence of the Holy is available to you just as it's available to me. And even when I don't understand, even when I still figure in my own mind, well, I don't know so much. They don't seem to be saying the same things as me. They don't seem to see the resurrection of Jesus like me. They don't seem to know the virgin birth like I do. Or they don't get to see communion in the same way that I do. That they don't get to, that you and I can see things radically differently. But that truly, if we are to be a radically inclusive church, radically inclusive community of faith, that it's not my job to judge whether you or I are in the presence of God, but only for you to determine for yourself. A radically inclusive community is really scary. Just as it was for those early disciples when they didn't understand what was going on that day. It can be for us too, because we are full of our own judgments about whether people are in or whether people are out. One of the exciting things about being a pastor of Metropolitan Community Church, no matter where we are in the world, is to ever widen the table of welcome and to realize that the Holy Spirit does strange and peculiar and wonderful things. And to know that that Holy Spirit will be made manifest in your life in a way that is unique to you, in the same way that that Spirit, that same Spirit, will be made manifest uniquely and different in me. And that they do not need to be the same in order for us to be a Christian. That is good news, sisters and brothers. But I want to tell you, it's also challenging news. It's challenging because we sometimes want a one-size-fits-all Christianity. Just as I wanted my little box that made sure that everyone fitted into the corners of that box, and if you didn't, you were outside. I have come to realize that the box gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and sometimes it becomes a triangle, and sometimes it becomes an oblong, and sometimes it becomes something that I can't even describe its shape because it is too weird, too peculiar to truly be in my own framework. What joy that should bring to our soul, that Jesus is big enough to encompass each and every one of us. And that we this morning get to witness that Holy Spirit welcoming in the outsider and bringing them into our midst to wake us up, to give us the kick up the butt that we need, and to remind us that whenever we think that we have described God, God is no longer in that description. That whenever we have tried to limit the power of the Holy Spirit has found a peculiar way to get outside of our way and to make it different all over again. That's the joy about being in this community of faith. Sisters and brothers, we are to keep up with God this morning. When we try to keep up with God, when we try to limit God's power and God's dominion in this earth, we are limiting the fullness of who God can be, and the reality of people's lives are no longer changed. But when we allow God to get out of the box, when we allow ourselves to keep up with the God who keeps moving and keeps breaking down the barriers and keeps building up hope, and who keeps allowing us to see God in new and wonderful ways, when we allow ourselves to keep up the pace with God, we get to see God's people in new and exciting ways. Who would have ever known that maybe 12 months ago we would have been sat with this group of people this morning, worshiping and acknowledging the God who is in us all? I certainly wouldn't have believed it. And yet here we are. And we're here because the Spirit has called us to be here.